Fifth Hour Radio Show.
Shawn, I want to ask you first, can you kind of take us back a little bit on how old you were when you first realized that, music was going to be a big part of your life?
Man, I'd love to. Growing up in a musical family from a little town in southeast Iowa, music was always a big part of my family. We'd sit on the front porch, and Grandpa had an old 1950s Gibson acoustic that used to sit around and pick some old Burl Haggard tunes and Earl Thomas Conley and this and that. And there was a little show in that town where my grandpa was actually the mayor of in his later years of his life, and it was called the Farmington Jamboree. And you had to be a senior in high school to be in this show, or be at least 18 years old. And of course, all through the years, I watched my uncles go through the show and had some relatives go through the show, and just watching them and watch what they do, it just really intrigued me. So I thought, I'm going to try this. So I started practicing, rehearsing for the show, and my grandpa played bass in the band actually that did the show. We met once a week. I did the show and got just a very, very cool audience response. I got what they call clapback, where you finish your song and they would just stand up and continue clapping. And basically what they were saying was encore. They wanted you to do an encore. So, the very first night I did that, I thought, man, this is really cool. So I would have to say I was 18 when that actually took place.
Well, what came first for you? Was it the guitar or the voice? Did you realize you had a good singing voice, or did you start playing the guitar first?
All through for school, I was in choir, of course. My choir teachers really hated me because I had country twang even back then. I kind of had that country influence growing up listening to, Alabama and the Oak Ridge Boys and, groups like that. So I would say, growing up through the years in choir, I had a pretty decent voice. Of course, when you're that young, it's very undeveloped, and you haven't really come into your own at that point. But yeah, I would say, back then, I had a little bit of influence back then, I would say.
So growing up in Iowa, I've never actually been to Iowa. Do most people in Iowa have a northern accent, or is it a southern accent, or did you come across your southern accent by listening to a lot of these older country musicians?
Well, I've been down here around Nashville, Tennessee now for about 12 years, so I'm picking up a little bit of twang. But no, normally I'm a Yankee, by nature. I was, like I said, I was born and raised in southeast Iowa. And I've got family actually, down the tree there that's from Tompkinsville, Kentucky area and stuff. But no, I wouldn't say that the twang or anything come from up there. No, it strictly is down here.
So. Well, you really got some momentum behind you. You're starting to get a lot of notoriety. Have you got to meet any of the people that have influenced you? Have you brushed elbows with anybody that just
Believe it or not, I have. When I first moved down here, I was introduced, and this is really ironic because we'll get into this, I imagine, later on. But when I first moved down here in 2001, I was introduced to tons of people in the projects, in the musical industry, of course. My goal was to come down here. Of course, I was in a road band up in Iowa for about 5 or 6 years. We traveled. We did opening shows for probably 30 stars. So I've been on the big stage doing the opening act things. Of course, the money was actually better back then than it is now, unfortunately. But when we first moved down here in 2001, I got to meet Shelby Singleton, who now owns Sun Records. I got to meet Dean Dillon, who wrote all kinds of songs for George Strait, Baby Blue, Oceanfront Property. A little story about Dean Dillon. A friend of mine that brought me down here and introduced me to these people actually started Dean Dillon writing. Dean Dillon used to live with him up in Iowa back in the late 70s, early 80s, I suppose. And my friend taught him how to write songs, believe it or not. And look at him now. He's got a a catalog a mile long, and of course writing for George Strait, that's got to be pretty cool, as far as that goes. But yeah, I've met all kinds of cool people. Met Minnie McCready. In fact, I did my first recording session down here in Nashville in the same studio that Minnie McCready recorded in. Of course, she's passed away now.
Yeah, it's tragedy there.
Yeah, it's very, very, very tragic, very tragic. In fact, several of the session players that were on my first album were actually on her first album. If you go and look at some of the credits, you'll see like Jimmy Nichols, on keyboards, and Spady Brandon on bass, and so on and so forth. But I got to meet Kevin Sharp. I walked down the stairwell. My dad and me walked down the stairwell of the recording studio from the office, and my dad knew that Kevin was in there, and the first thing my dad said to Kevin was, "Do you know who you are?" he was so starstruck that it didn't come out how he wanted it to. Kevin kind of looked at him funny, Of course, he was recording in the same studio. Andy Griggs also recorded there. I never met Andy Griggs, but he recorded his first album in the same studio that I recorded in, so that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But the engineers and stuff that did my sessions also did his, so they were top-notch engineers.
So 12 years ago, when you decided to pack up and move to Nashville, let me reword that. What made you pack up and move to Nashville?
I come to a point in my life where I know that I've got, a God-given ability. And doing what we were doing, I knew that I was only going to get so far being 3 states away. And I had to come to the realization that, in order to do what I want to do, I've got to be down in Nashville, which is the nexus of the world, when it comes to country music. And, it was a sad, tragic time when, I did my last show with the band that I was with at the time. And it was kind of a sad time. We become really close. And, of course, being a musician and being with 5 guys, you're married to them. You're with them all the time, and it's like a marriage. And there's ups and there's downs, of course, and everything. But I just reached that point in my life when I was there that I thought, I've got to do something, and the only way to cure that itch is go right in the middle of the snake pit. So that's what we did.
Now you're married, right?
I am. I've been married to my wife Renee for going on 13 years now.
So did she pack up with you and move to Nashville?
She did. Yeah, she did. And in fact, I was playing music when I met her, believe it or not. So
she likes the musicians.
She liked the musician. Yeah. She liked. They call it. She used to have a nickname for me. It was a code word. I was called the Little Black Hat Guy.
Well, was there any more code words for you when you knew you were in trouble?
I suppose there probably was. We won't go into them.
Well, how did you acclimate to Nashville? Were you overwhelmed at first?
I was at first. I was humbled, first off. There's so much talent down here on every street corner. The first time, I made 1 trip or 2 trips prior, just vacationing, not having anything to do with music, just vacationing. And one time with a friend of mine, and the other time was with a girlfriend of mine, and we come down. And when I was with my girlfriend at the time, which was several years prior to meeting my wife, by the way, we were walking downtown on Broadway, which, if you know what Broadway is, it's where all the bars are: Tootsie's, Roberts, Legends, the Stage, Whiskey Bent, all of them. There was a gentleman playing in there. He was kind of a bigger fella, in there, just a phenomenal guitar player. And he had just moved there not too long before I was there, maybe a couple years prior. And it turns out it was Johnny Hyland. And if you know Johnny Hyland at all, he's a phenomenal guitar player. He's performed with Sammy Hagar. He's on Steve Vai's record label. The guy is endorsed by Fender and all kinds of different amps. Just a phenomenal. But that was him, and he was just playing in a little bar in Nashville, Tennessee, which is just ironic. So when you see that kind of talent just in a bar, it makes you realize that, wow, you're a little out of your element.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of that in Nashville for sure.
You will. You never know. We was in Bass Pro, and Brad Paisley was checking out 2 aisles over from us. That was pretty cool. He's buying a compound bow.
Did you strike up a conversation with him?
No, I didn't. You know, sometimes they like to be left alone, you know, and given their space, you know, and you can just tell when they want to be talked to and told, and you can tell when they don't want to be talked to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just kind of respect that, you know.
So just starting out in a new city with just a guitar on your back, how did you make ends meet first going down there?
Well, coming from a background that I come from in Iowa, I was a floor installer. I installed carpet in Iowa and had done so for about 5 or 6 years. Was trained by a couple very good carpet layers, as a matter of fact. So I moved here with a skill, with a trade. And I opened up my own business down here in Nashville, and it was called Moss Carpet Installation. And had done that for, I don't know, 8 years, 7, 8 years, something like that. So I had a trade that paid really, really well down here. I probably did music, a good, honest run of music, about 8 months when I moved here to Nashville. I did it for about 8 months. And then it got to the point where my flooring business really took off, and I was making too great of money, you know, to not do it. And it just made more sense that I kind of put the music on the back burner. You know, I kind of focused on other things other than music, which is really, really sad. But, you know, I came to the point where I was a homebody. I loved to mow my grass. I loved to do my yard work, you know, and I kind of came to that point where, you know, I'm just tired of fighting, you know. I've been down here 8 months, nothing happened, and I gave up. I gave up really, really early at the music. And started doing the construction, you know, doing the flooring installation and trim work and this and that, and kind of became really focused on that. So
what
that
was
my
brought you back?
main. What's that?
What brought you back? What brought you back
well,
around?
It's very, very funny, but I'm an avid outdoorsman. I love the outdoors. I'm a big archery hunter. Have been for years, thanks to my granddaddy. He started my dad into hunting, which, you know, started me into hunting, of course. But I used to work on bows here at the house in my spare time. People would bring bows to me. I would tune them, set them up, put new strings, time the cams. I was a archery pro tech is what I was. Basically, I did all kinds of servicing and repair on bows and things in my spare time here at the house. And I started part-time work at a company that you're probably very well familiar with called Gander Mountain.
Oh, absolutely. I visited often.
Well, okay. Well, I was an archery tech part-time in Gander Mountain. Little food for thought is I actually spent more money than I made there, by the way.
Well, you got discounts.
The discounts were killer, man. They were killer. No. But I was in there one day, and I was actually in the firearms section showing a firearm to a fella. And a gentleman walked up, him and his wife, and shook my hand, and we got to talking. And, of course, you know, Gander Mountain really presses you to be real personable with people. That's one thing I will say about that is they're very customer-oriented. And I started talking to this guy, and come to find out this guy was a songwriter and used to be a staff writer for BMI. And he played a song for me that Joe Diffie's lead man, Lee Bogan, wrote. And Lee Bogan did some co-writing with it. It was called Tequila and Beer. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you know, do you sing? And I was like, well, you know, I have. You know, when anybody asks you if you can sing, typically what I'll say is, well, people think I can, I guess, you know.
You got to be humble.
Brag. But he asked me, he said, do you sing? And I said, man, I'd love to sing. I said, if you ever need anybody to sing any demos for you or anything that you've wrote, man, give me a shout. I'd come up and do it. He lives in my town and knows everybody, you know, just in fact talks to Pearlie Curtis all the time. Pearlie Curtis was Loretta Lynn's steel guitar player for years. Him and Pearlie are really tight. So, you know, this guy knows all kinds of people. Joe Caverly, which is Tracy Lawrence's fiddle player, and him. Joe Caverly's an archery hunter, so Joe Caverly will come over, and Mike also works on bows, which is ironic, and everything. But anyway, he come up there, and he's like, yeah, he said, I'd like to hear you sometime. So he's like, why don't you come over next week? So I came over to his house and sat down. He's like, pick up that acoustic there and play me something. And I started to sing, and he's like, what are you doing working at Gander Mountain? And I had this puzzled look on my face. I'm like, well, what do you mean?
They got discounts.
Yeah, that's right. He said, you have a phenomenal voice. He's like, my God, you have got to get out there and sing. You know, and right then, a spark just hit, and it just started that fire. And once you're a musician, you're always a musician. You can tame it, but you never get rid of it. It's always there. And once that spark hit, man, it was just like a wildfire. I just went out and started buying PA equipment and started putting a good PA to do clubs together with. And
you got the gear acquisition syndrome.
Absolutely, and I you know, Benny Schultz calls me a gear whore, just like him. You know, we love the gear.
Well, what's the difference in trying to find a gig now? In Nashville, there's so many different artists out there. How easy was it, or how hard was it for you to find a gig?
You know, I have avoided Nashville like the plague, believe it or not. I try and not play anywhere down in Nashville, typically because once you get stuck in that grind of playing down on Broadway and all them little clubs like that, you're kind of roped into it. They expect it, and once you step out and do something else, you lose your spot. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to do something, I had to come to the realization to make any kind of money at all, it had to be away from Nashville. So I traveled. I put a band together, a 6-piece band. I had a steel guitar player, which is still with me now, and we toured. We toured all kinds of different places, as far as north of Fargo, up in Monoman, Minnesota, at like the Shooting Star Casino. We did that room, and Pennsylvania, clear down to Georgia, and I mean just all over.
Now, when you were touring, do you do originals or do you just do covers or what? When back in those days?
we did covers. A lot of the clubs that we were playing have contracts with booking agencies that I was using, and a lot of them do not like you to do originals, strictly because they like people to be able to dance and identify with the song. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that you're doing, you know, they might not dance to it and might not identify to it, and therefore they get disgruntled pretty easy. So no, so typically we did cover songs.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit to what you got going on right now. You pretty much have you've been working with a who's who of musicians and songwriters. How did that all come about?
Facebook.
Everything leads to Facebook, huh?
Facebook, man, Facebook. You know, no. What happened was we got back from this last month run we did, and we got back, and you know, I sat down. And I'll rewind a little bit. We were in Grantville, Pennsylvania, and we were doing a show there, and about halfway through the show, I seen this couple come in. It was a man and a wife, and they looked around the speakers, and they gave me the thumbs up. And I just kind of waved at them, you know, not thinking anything of it. We did 2 more songs, and then went down on break. And they walked up to me, and they shook my hand and said, "Man, we have to shake your hand." And I said, "Okay, thank you, you know, thanks for coming, you know." And they're like, he said, I got to tell you. He said, when we was checking in at the front desk, we heard Garth Brooks in here singing, and we had to come in. My wife's seen him 3 times, and we had to come in and see him. And we peeked around the corner, and we seen it was you. He said, "I swear," and my wife swears, that it was Garth Brooks in there singing. He's like, "You have got to be kidding me." So right then and there, that's when I decided, when I got home after that last run, to do a Garth Brooks tribute show and pay homage to, you know, one of the largest artists of all time.
And he really is. He is truly amazing, and he's influenced so many people. So many people.
He has.
I got to ask you though, as far as songwriting goes, are you going to be writing your own music or collaborating with these legends that you have backing you up right now? You know, because I know you're working with Dwayne.
Yeah, working with the old Hitchmeister.
What's it like working with Dwayne? I've had Dwayne on the show. He seems like a really laid back guy, and seems like a fun guy to hang out with.
He is a ball. He is a ball. You know, we shot a video, an EPK video for this tribute thing that we're doing. And when it come time, what I had a section where I wanted the band to be interviewed. And the first thing the man says was, "I swear she was 18." and I looked at him, and everybody looked at him. We just don't. But that's the kind of energy that he brings into the room. He brings a light feeling with him that just sets everybody at ease. You know, I love the man to death. I can't say enough about him.
Did you contact him on Facebook? And when you did you know, I mean, really, his background?
No, I didn't, as a matter of fact. What I did was I put an ad on Facebook and said, "Look, my name is such and such." I said, "This is Shawn Gerhard." I said, "I'm actually putting together a Garth Brooks tribute show." And I said, "I'm looking for keynote players." And Dwayne messaged me back on Facebook and said, "Man, I have got the perfect guitar player that just moved here from L.A. His name's Benny Schultz. Here's his phone number. Give him a call and talk to him." So, of course, you know, instantly I'm thinking Schultz. That's got to be a Jewish man. So I called Benny Schultz, and of course we hit it right off. You know, we clicked. We both had the same vision in mind, and it's been a pleasure. You know, ever since we first had that first conversation, it just seems getting better and better. But no, I had no idea about Dwayne's background at all. You know, from the first time I talked, I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he was a keyboard player, and he was an old keyboard player with gray hair. That's all I know.
When you found out, excuse me, his background, what did you think?
Man, I was blown away. I'm like, man, you know, this guy wrote songs that I listened to. You know, I'm thinking, you know, I just can't believe it. You know, who this man is and what credits he has and where he's come from and the stuff that he's, you know, accomplished in his life. You know, it's
just, like, hey, wait a minute, I've seen Flashdance.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, actually, I have not seen Flashdance. I have not. That's a little before my time.
How old are you? Do you mind telling me?
No, I don't mind at all. I'll be 40 years old this year. I'm 39.
Oh, we're exactly the same age.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Flashdance all the way through.
Now, you can be honest with me. It's okay, right?
Man, do you ever just sit back and think, you know, how everything is just falling into place for you? You know, all the hard work, the long nights of practice, and how everything's just coming to a head?
Man, every day. It just seems like, you know, just recently, I got a phone call yesterday. Blaine got a phone call, and then he called Benny, of course, and then Benny called me. He was all excited. We've got 3 songwriters that are interested in writing with me. One has already committed to me, and that's Don Goodman. And Don Goodman's wrote for all kinds of people, Little Texas and Doug Stone, and the list goes on and on. Tommy Barnes has heard about me. Tommy Barnes wrote Indian Outlaw for Tim McGraw, something like that. Many other Tim McGraw songs. Tommy Barnes is interested in writing with me. There's no definites on him yet. The other person that Dwayne has contacted for me in this aspect, and this really, you know, I'll stop and rewind a little bit. It really, really, really blows my mind that a man with this much behind him and credits has this much faith in me and what I'm doing. That really, really, that's not something that I take lightly. And it just boggles my mind to know that man has this much faith and to know that I've got it in me to do what I'm doing. So it really, really, really is a humbling experience for me. But he has contacted Victoria Shaw, who actually used to sing harmony for Garth Brooks, and contacted her. She wrote The River and, what's that other girl song? She's Every Woman. She wrote that song for him as well, and I think that was on his Fresh Horses album. But he's contacted her. She has not gotten back yet. But Don Goodman is on board. Tommy Barnes isn't yet, and Victoria's not yet. So we're working on them.
You're also hooking up with, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I conversate with Benjamin, and you know that.
Sure. Working
with Jake Hooker.
Yes, Jake is actually my manager. Jake took me on. I'm one of his clients. We sent Jake the video, and he come back and said that it was a no-brainer. He wanted to manage me. So
that's
Jake,
awesome coming from someone whose songs that he's wrote and produced and composed has sold over $1.6 billion in retail sales.
I'm telling you, a karaoke favorite. You know, I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett.
Yeah, one of the top 10 rock songs of all time.
I'm telling you. Yeah, the man, he's very, very, charismatic about what he does, his music, and just managing, and as far as that goes. I'm just so blessed to be working with a guy like him.
Well, Shawn, what's coming up for you in the band right now? Any shows, any tours?
No, we are actually in the process of getting the band tight. We just got the final position in the band filled last week, which was a keyboard player. And now that we've got all our players, now we're working on the material. We've got 19 songs that we're going to be doing, and basically that'll take care of about an hour-and-a-half show, a 90-minute show. So our process now, we have picked up booking. We've got a major booking agency down here in Nashville that is booking us as we speak. They're actually shopping us around as we speak, and that's Skyline Entertainment here out of Nashville. Steve Peck is the agent we're working with. Steve has said that he wanted to take on this project and do some booking for us. So, with a band of this caliber, an 8-piece band, which we are 8 pieces, we have fiddle, steel guitar, 2 electric guitars, acoustic, keyboards, bass, lead guitar, and drums.
So if someone gets sick one night, you guys can still put on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. If unless I get sick, then we're in trouble. But I don't think Ben can sound like Garth Brooks. He's got a beard and has too much facial hair.
Well, you better have him practicing.
But I'll be honest with you. Everybody in the band sings, believe it or not, and everybody in the band can sing lead. So the group. I can't say enough about the group that Ben has put together. If I can say one thing about Ben, it's that the man knows music and he knows what it takes to arrange and put together a band. Because the band that we have, that I have behind me right now, is strictly professional. There ain't nothing that they can't do. In fact, the guitar player that we just picked up just passed up 60 dates this summer with David Lee Murphy, which is a signed artist, to play with me. So if that tells you anything, what kind of people we have, playing with us.
Mm-hmm. David Lee Murphy, I'm sorry. I think he's from around these parts in Illinois.
Is he?
I think so. I think he's maybe Benton. I might be wrong about that. Like I said, I've been wrong about a few things.
Yeah. Isn't that where, now, where was it you said you lived?
I live in a town called, I live outside of a town called Metropolis, Illinois, the home of Superman.
Okay, so do you ever see Lex Luthor driving around or anything?
I see the Superman statue every now and then, and his arch enemy about 2 blocks down, Big John. It's a supermarket statue.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
There's no Bizarro Superman or anything?
No, just the Lois Lane statue and a Superman statue, and actually the Big John statue is actually like twice as big as the Superman statue.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go over and check that out sometime. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, they got a Harris Casino there. Maybe you can book a gig there.
Yeah. I'll have to say something to my manager about that. See if he can get us in.
Well, Shawn, tell the people where they can find you online as far as your website, social media, and stuff like that.
Sure. If anybody wants to check out what we're doing or see anything that we've done, you can go to www.ShawnGerhard.com, and that's ShawnGerhard.com. Go on there, and they can. I've got some pictures on there. I've got a little bit of a bio, things that I've, place where I grew up, and things, stuff my dad did, and music stuff. I've got 5 songs on there that were written actually by Dean Dillon, that I demoed for him, and of course they were mastered and everything. So they're phenomenal songs. One of the songs, I take that back. One of the songs, the very first song, called "Bottom of the Bottle," was one a steel guitar player friend of mine wrote from Iowa that I used to play with. The other ones were written by Dean Dillon. So, and I co-wrote the second song, believe it or not. So I'm dabbling in songwriting.
Well, I think in a very short amount of time, Shawn Gerhard is going to be a household name. And I guess my final question to you, Shawn, is: do you believe in destiny?
I do. I believe that everybody has a purpose, and I believe that everybody has a portion of their life that they have a goal that they're trying to reach, and this is mine, and my goal is a record deal. I want a record deal, and I'm going for it.
You're going to get it. You're going to get it, buddy. I've heard your music. I've seen your video. You're right on track.
Well, I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.